With the recent release of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, the character of Toji Fushiguro appears to have taken the internet by storm, with millions of young men falling in love with his personality. It's not surprising. Dark and tortured characters always seem to strike a chord at the heart of the viewer. And every manga reader knew from the second they saw Toji that he was going to be a massive hit with the mainstream. It therefore isn't surprising that so many people would try to replicate his physique, seeing how integral to the character his superhuman strength and ripped body are. And unlike other fictional dream physiques which will forever remain out of reach due to the sheer size or leanness of their owner, Yujiro Hanma being a good example, I believe that Toji actually constitutes a realistic goal body to shoot for. But knowing that the Toji physique is within reach isn't enough. Now you also need to know how to train for it. And this is where your problems start, because while anime YouTubers might be very good at power scaling, the one thing they suck at is creating fitness programs. This leads to some of the most ridiculous routines I've ever seen, which will not only never get you to the Toji physique, but might also leave you injured or destroy your love for training forever. Thankfully, there are ways to tell if a program is bad. Here are the 3 most common mistakes that people make when trying to obtain an anime physique. The first is that they simply mimic whatever the character they want to look like is doing. A good example of that is Guts from Berserk. You'd be surprised the amount of people who think that swinging a sword will get them the Guts physique, when the only thing you're likely to accomplish is to get the cops called on you by your neighbors, who think you've gone psycho. The best and most simple way to get whatever body you want is, and will always be, resistance training, meaning the action of lifting weights in a controlled environment. As such, please don't go gamble all your life savings on races, or start chasing random teenagers through the forest with a caterpillar around your neck. It simply won't work. The second mistake people make is to try and reproduce the athletic abilities of their favorite character, thinking that this would also somehow lead to a likeness in physique. This is flawed logic for 2 reasons. 1, you will never be able to match the strength and feats of fictional characters, because they're fictional characters. And 2, even if you did, it wouldn't mean much. Think of it that way. If you saw someone with a big back and they could do 15 pull-ups, that wouldn't mean that your back would look the same if you managed to do 15 pull-ups. All it would mean is that if you wanted to get closer to their physique, you would have to raise your performance, however low or high that might be. This mindset will help you avoid the type of functional workouts that look cool on paper, but often result in subpar muscle growth, and recenter your attention on movement patterns that align with your goal. And finally, the third mistake that plagues anime workouts is that they're simply too much, either because you're asked to train too often, or because the amount of volume is too high. The reasoning behind that flaw is easy to understand. Because you aim to look like a monster, you must train like one. Unfortunately, that's not how hypertrophy works, and life is not an anime. The process of building your body is a slow one, and you can't rush the recovery process, at the risk of doing a lot of efforts for nothing. This is especially relevant considering that the vast majority of anime fans are novices when it comes to fitness, meaning they have virtually no work capacity. These heavy workloads condemn them before they can even start. With that in mind, you'll quickly realize that the vast majority of Toji Fushiguro programs available on the internet are garbage. So I've decided to create a brand new one to provide motivated anime fans with a solid routine to follow in order to achieve the physique of their dreams. To do so, this program will fulfill 3 criteria. Firstly, it will be relevant, secondly, it will be scalable, and thirdly, it will be fun. What I mean by relevant is that since the goal is to look like Toji, it'd be best if the movements contained within the program reflected his aesthetic. And to do that, There's no better way than to simply observe his physique, like one would a statue. With him, one thing is immediately evident. Toji is an upper body bro, meaning that his torso, back and limbs are much more developed than his legs. And that's okay. After all, not everyone wants tree trunks and a big ass. So we already know that we'll get to go easy on the lower body and put most of our energy where it matters, namely the shoulders, lats, and traps, which are Toji's greatest strengths, explaining his impressive V-taper. Along with that, we also can't forget his abs, which immediately stand out in his physique, as well as his neck, which is much thicker than average. The biceps, triceps, and chest are also fairly developed, with the forearms slightly lagging behind. Now onto his stats. Toji is 6 feet 2 or 190 centimeters, with naturally wide clavicles and narrow hips. This further exaggerates his V-taper, and is not a feature you can train for. You have to be born with it. The good news is that, regardless of your genetics, any amount of training will inevitably improve your V-taper, so don't waste time on these considerations. And since the program will focus on growing the right muscles for that look, your proportions will naturally start to resemble Toji's, even if you're shorter or stockier than him. As far as body weight goes, we don't know for sure, but he's probably heavier than 200 pounds. You also won't have to match that. The one aspect that you'll have to adhere to is his body fat percentage, which is between 12 and 14%. You could think it's lower because he has abs, but to get a six-pack like Toji, getting shredded won't cut it. You'll have to grow them. Not having to be super lean will greatly buff up your frame as well, as most males store a lot of fat in their yoke and shoulder area. Once we know this, we have all the necessary ingredients to make our program. The next step is to decide on a realistic escalation scheme. Since the program must be scalable and adapt to your experience level, the best option is to make 3 different variations of it, each growing in volume and effort required. The first, stage 1, will be comprised of compounds, calisthenic movements and isolation, to get the body used to the patterns and allow novices to ease their way into the routine. The second, stage 2, will graduate from bodyweight to weighted calisthenics, putting the body under more stress and allowing the muscles to experience heavier loads, still with isolation as complements and compounds as main builders. The third, stage 3, will add a 4th day to the program, upping the overall volume and frequency of key muscles like the shoulders, lats, and traps. Remember that a physique like Toji takes time to build. If you're a beginner starting with stage 1, it's likely that reaching stage 2 will take you at least a year, and that the second step will take at least 2 years before you can graduate to stage 3, at which point you won't be done. You're just getting started. If you're not willing to put in that time, give up now. Let's begin with stage 1. I'll have you train full body only 3 days a week, using simple movement patterns. If you've already been lifting weights for a while, you can skip that step. But if you're a skinny teenager who's never trained, this is going to be essential to prepare you for the rest of the program. So we start on Monday with 3 sets of push-ups, as many reps as possible, which is going to greatly grow your chest, triceps and shoulders, and we superset that with some dumbbell shrugs for your traps, 3 sets of 10 to 15. The next superset is going to be for more shoulders with lateral raises, 4 sets of 6 to 12, and some reverse crunches, 4 sets, as many reps as possible to directly target the abs. And then we finish that day with chin-ups, 3 sets, as many reps as possible with just body weight to get used to the movement. If you are not able to do chin-ups or pull-ups, you can replace that with lat pull-downs. And then we superset that with some split squats, 3 sets of 8 to 12 for glute and quad development. You then get 48 hours to rest and you come back on Wednesday with dumbbell overhead press, 3 sets of 6 to 10 to grow these shoulders in priority, and superset that with neck curls to develop the neck in isolation, 3 sets of 15 to 20. Then we move on to some dumbbell rows. I have to do 4 sets because the upper back is much more resilient and endurant than other muscle groups. 8 to 12. Superset that with some cable katana extensions, 4 sets of 10 to 15, because likewise the long head of the tricep is also fairly endurant. And then we move on to reverse flies, 3 sets of 12 to 15, and some hammer curls, 3 sets of 6 to 10. I keep the sets low for muscles like the rear delts and the forearms because most likely they're going to tire extremely quickly since you're not used to actually working them. And then we wrap up that week on Friday with some dumbbell bench, again for more chest development and shoulders, 3 sets of 6 to 10, superset that with cable curls for the biceps, 3 sets of 8 to 12. Then some pullovers, which will be essential if you want the Toji physique because they're going to greatly improve your V-taper, 3 sets of 8 to 12, and I recommend you do that with a dumbbell. Superset that with some Russian twists. I've always found that pullovers already greatly stretch the abs, so if you follow it up with an ab isolation movement, even if only with body weight, you are going to greatly feel it, so 3 sets, as many reps as possible. And the last set of the day, some upright rows, 4 sets of 10 to 15 for traps and shoulders. The rep range is high on purpose so that you don't use too much weight and you don't hurt yourself. And superset that with some goblet squats for a bit more lower body development, 4 sets of 8 to 12. Once you get to a point where this feels like not enough volume to progress, you can move on to stage 2, where you'll still be following a 3 times a week full body template, but this time every bodyweight movement graduates into weighted alternatives, and most of the exercises are also replaced with more intense variations. On top of that, most supersets are upped by 1 set, greatly increasing the workload. So you still train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but this time on Monday, instead of push-ups as many reps as possible, you open with weighted dips, 4 sets of 4 to 8. If you really love push-ups, it's fine, you can just do weighted push-ups instead. And then we superset that with some power shrugs, 4 sets of 6 to 10, instead of the regular dumbbell shrugs, because you can move much more weight with the power variation. Then we do some cable lateral raises, which used to be just lateral raises, but you should be good enough at this point to be able to use precise isolation movements with cables, 4 sets of 6 to 12, and some weighted sit-ups instead of the reverse crunches. We are starting to train the abs with weight, 4 sets of 8 to 12. And then some weighted chin-ups, 4 sets of 6 to 10 instead of the bodyweight chin-ups, as many reps as possible. You'll notice that I still keep the rep range high. If it's too low and you use too much weight, you're going to have a tendency to overextend the arm, which could lead to bicep injuries, and I don't want that happening to you. And then still the split squats are the same, it's just that you do an extra set. Then on the Wednesday, you'll notice that the exercises have been shuffled around. So you still start with the dumbbell overhead press, but then you superset it with some hammer curls. And I added reps to the hammer curls because now your forearms should be endurant enough. Then you do your cable katana extensions, still 4 sets of 10 to 15, superset that with the neck curls, 4 sets of 15 to 20, and then the dumbbell rows graduate into Krock rows, which tend to hit the traps much harder, 4 sets of 8 to 12. And the reverse flies become machine reverse flies, 4 sets of 12 to 15. And to wrap up that week, instead of opening with dumbbell bench, you do close grip bench now, 4 sets of 6 to 10, and the cable curls transformed into easy bar preacher curls, which are much more intense, 4 sets of 6 to 12. Still followed by the pullovers, these went nowhere, you just do an additional set, but the Russian twists are now weighted. And we wrap up still with the upright rows. It's a key exercise for the Toji physique because traps and shoulders, you can never get enough of that. So I leave it untouched, but then instead of the goblet squat, which you should have outgrown by now, you do some leg press, 4 sets of 8 to 12. In the same logic, you want to stay on that program for as long as possible, milk it as much as possible, and when you feel like you're plateauing and you need more volume, you can move on to stage 3, where we'll be sticking to what we were doing previously, except that I'm adding a day. Now it doesn't look like much, but this represents a jump in volume of almost 30%, which at the end of the year makes a massive difference in workload. And since you will now be training 4 times a week instead of 3, you're going to have to pay close attention to your recovery, especially for the shoulders and traps. So as I said, the Monday and the Wednesday don't change at all, it's the exact same, but you will notice that I removed a set from every single exercise on the Friday, and that is because you now train also Saturday, then you train again on Monday. So I'm doing this to slightly reduce the amount of fatigue you'll get when you walk into the Saturday, which should allow you to stay performant and intense. And for that Saturday in particular, we start with machine shoulder press, because the Friday before doesn't have any direct compound movements for the shoulder, so you should still be fresh. 3 sets of 8 to 12, then some neck extensions. We train neck a second time during the week now, 3 sets of 15 to 20. Then moving on to the next superset, we do incline dumbbell rows, 4 V-lats and the traps, 3 sets of 6 to 10, and some triceps push downs, 3 sets of 8 to 12, or a bit more arm isolation. All of which should leave your shoulders, triceps, neck and upper back extremely sore. And that's exactly what we want, because then you're going to do some farmer's walks and the entirety of the weight is going to be pulled on these pre-fatigued muscles. So I guarantee you that you will be feeling them. And that's of course a killer movement to develop your traps. Toji has monster traps and this is going to help you grow them as well. 3 sets of 30 meters, and because the torture never ends, you actually superset that with some Y raises for the shoulders in particular, 3 sets of 8 to 12. So if you pay attention, you will realize that you train shoulders, lats and traps every single day on that program. 3 times a week for the stage 1 and 2, and 4 times a week for stage 3. The reason of course being obvious, it's because these muscles are essential to achieve the Toji physique. So you have to hit them often and hard. But the amount of volume and time between sessions should be enough for you to recover. There is also very little lower body work, which should keep your legs and glutes relatively small, accentuating the size of your upper body in comparison. Now that you have the program, the only thing that remains is for you to put in the work. In a sense, to get a heavenly pact of your own. But rather than sacrificing your cursed energy in exchange for superhuman muscles, you'll trade time and effort instead. Now go out there and get those jujutsu gains.